Hey, sorry for the interruption, but we wanted to let you know that this week's episode is brought to you by Spotify for Podcasters. Really cool app. Josiah and I use it for every single show that we bring to you every week. You can edit podcasts right from your phone or computer, so you can start creating as soon as you log into the platform. You can easily distribute your podcasts to Spotify and everywhere else the podcasts are heard, just like we do every single week. You can also create video podcasts on Spotify, which is really cool. And of course, you can earn money like I'm doing right now by including ads and even podcast subscriptions. And best of all, it's totally free. There's no catch. We really love it. We use it every single week. So we encourage you to go download the Spotify for Podcasters app or go to www.spotify.com/podcasters to get started. All right, let's get back to the show.
Radical! Welcome to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. Each week, join the gnarly Travis and Josiah as they provide insight into the print on demand industry and equip you with the totally tubular tools, advice, and strategies you need to achieve success and hopefully have a few laughs along the way. Now on to this week's Totally Tubular Show.
Hey everybody, welcome back to the Print on Demand Cast. As always, I'm Josiah, joined by Travis Ross. We are your hosts for this and every single podcast you listen to or will listen to, at least here on this feed, not on every podcast ever.
That would be weird.
Anyway, Travis, how was that? It would be weird. The Joe Rogan experience, you just hear us or no one wants that. But Travis, how you doing, man? How's things going?
I'm good. It's Tuesday. We tried to do this last night, as I mentioned in the interview, but
we did.
You were sick. So how are you feeling? Are you feeling better?
It was not. I'm feeling considerably better. Yes. Still some like weird head pressure stuff, sinus, whatever. But like last night, from like 6 till probably midnight, had the worst migraine I've ever had in my life. Just like a throbbing headache and. Could not. I mean, it was kind of the thing where I had to sleep sitting up because if I lay down, my head hurt too much. But if I moved my head anyway, it would start hurting more. And so it was awful. So needless to say, a restless night until I got my hands on 2 600 milligram ibuprofens and popped those. So just took the edge off enough for me to pass out. So, but yeah, man, doing a lot better. Glad that we could get this episode recorded and get this interview in the can to bring to our listeners, man. So I think it's going to be fun. But let's tell some people before we get into the weekly dad joke, tell them another piece of information that they may want to know that for something that's coming up in January in California.
Yeah, we just dropped the link in the Facebook group. That's printondemandcast.com/Facebook. If you're not a member, why not? ISS. Yeah, ISS in Long Beach, which is the it's the the Impressions Expo is what it's called. And for some reason, Impressions Expo gets abbreviated to the ISS Expo. I don't know why. It's the Impressions Expo. It's basically all things apparel decoration. So think DTG, think embroidery, think heat press, think even beyond that, they'll also have some like engraving stuff. They'll probably have some UV stuff. They'll probably have just all kinds of vendors and all kinds of drinkware and just all kinds of stuff. It's going to be really cool. Long Beach is always one of the places where a lot of the manufacturers will come and unveil new products. As a matter of fact, the 3070 that both of us recently got in our shops was revealed at the Long Beach ISS show a couple years ago. So, couple years, not last year. Was it last year? Maybe the year before. Anyway, regardless. The registration is open, and for the next 15 days or so, it is free just for the expo. They have a conference that coincides with it with some learning and things like that. And you can check out the link to the show and just see if there's anything you'd want to, maybe attend, and maybe you'd have to pay extra for that. The expo itself is free just to get on the trade show floor. But Josiah, currently both Josiah and I are planning on attending. It's free to sign up. Even if you don't end up going, it's still, keep the opportunity or the option open, I guess. You can fly right into Long Beach on Southwest for us. Josiah, Denver cheap. To Long Beach is really cheap. It's a little bit further if you fly into LAX, but Yeah, we're both planning on going. Should be a good time. We'll probably do a meetup. But yeah, go into the Facebook group, click that link. Might as well sign up. We'd love to see you in Long Beach in January. That's the 21st through the 23rd, I believe.
Third, yes, it is. It is a weekend, so it's a little easier to plan. It's over a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, something like that. So it might be easier to plan for schedule wise. I know, taking trips on the weekends is always easier for me, just so we're not missing so much of the actual work week, and there's not so much catch up to do when you're gone. So it is nice that it is over a weekend and it's California. And where would you want to be in January other than, a beach, a Long Beach to be specific.
A long beach.
Yes. How long is Long Beach? Yes. If you have the answer to that, post that in the Facebook group. Coming up next is the weekly dad joke.
Time for the weekly dad joke.
Travis, what did Yoda say when he saw himself in 4K?
I don't know. What did Yoda say when he saw himself in 4K?
HDMI.
HDMI. Okay.
And that is this week's weekly dad joke. For those that don't know, 4K is like the highest of definitions these days. I remember when I was selling TVs, I worked at a Radio Shack Verizon store, and we were selling flat screen TVs when like 720 was like the rage. Like, dude, 1080p is coming out. Are you crazy? And a 65-inch TV was $3,000. Right now, you can go to Walmart and get them for like under $1,000. It's absolutely crazy to see how that industry has drastically changed. So, Travis, before we get into this week's main event, we got Helen Kinson to come on, and we were on her show, the Merch Money Podcast, probably a year ago. I think right when we were starting the Print on Demand cast, she was so gracious to have us on her show. So she is our guest. Tell the people, the listeners, what you're looking forward to the most and what they should maybe keep an ear out for when they're listening to this interview with Helen.
I think the thing that Helen brings to the Print on Demand cast is really her experience with interviewing so many industry leaders in the print on demand space. I mean, we've had a lot of great interviews, but nowhere near as many as Helen has had. She has interviewed literally 100 plus people that are doing print on demand for the last 3 years. So I think her breadth of experience with just, ideas, things you can do in print on demand. That's what I'm most excited for our listeners to hear. We're always trying to kind of unearth some new way to, maybe make a buck through this awesome technology that we have. And I think Helen's got a real good, she's got a real good corner on that market, and with ideas at least. Now, whether or not she's implementing them or we're implementing them or you're implementing them, that's a whole nother podcast. But we just want to present those ideas. And so you asked me specifically what I think the listeners should be listening for. And that's exactly it. It's just, what are some of the possibilities that I haven't thought of in print on demand?
I agree. I think that's kind of the whole entire focal point of this interview is the things that you haven't thought of that might be out of the box to definitely think about. So keep an ear out for those. And then, of course, once we're done with the interview, let us know which ones stood out to you. If you have any ideas, printondemandcast.com/Facebook. But without further ado, we're going to this week's main event, our interview with Helen Kinson. All right, Travis, it is time for the main event, and I'm excited to have our next guest on. I think she's actually one of the podcasts or shows that you and I have been on together a year or so ago, I want to say, maybe even a little longer than that. But at the very beginning of the Print on Demand cast, she was so gracious enough to let us come on the show and talk about our experience. And so we're excited to return the favor and welcome Helen Kinson onto the show. And for those who don't know who Helen is, here's a little bit about her. Helen Kinson has been an e-commerce since 2014 and started with doing retail arbitrage, which sounds very familiar because that's how we both started. She immediately signed up for merch by Amazon in 2015 when it launched, but waited an entire year to upload her first design because she thought she had to be a professional designer, which, that's, again, a trap we've talked about a lot in the show, but turns out that's not the truth. So between 2016 and 2017, she gradually started to learn print on demand and began to love it even more than retail arbitrage, which we both can attest to. Lots of commonalities here. In April of 2018, she launched the Merch Money YouTube channel and Facebook group. Over the last 3 years, over 100 print-on-demand experts, including your hosts, have been interviewed on the channel, and the Facebook group has grown over to 14,000 members. Helen has a passion for helping people learn how to succeed in print-on-demand and build their own businesses, and it is because of that we are excited to welcome Helen Kinson to the Print on Demand cast. Helen, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for inviting me. It's so good to see you guys again.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. We've been talking about doing this for quite a while, and it's only because of my negligence that we haven't done it before. So I'll take full responsibility for that. But we finally got it done. We finally got you on the Print on Demand cast, and we're really glad to have you here. We actually pull back the curtain a little bit. We actually tried to do this last night, but Josiah was not feeling well, and I was going to have to interview Helen by myself, and I just had stage fright. So. And I lost the password to our StreamYard account. So yeah. So we're kind of doing a last minute thing. This is actually going to air tomorrow, be put out tomorrow. But we're really glad you're here, Helen. So I know we kind of introed you with a basic story of your print on demand career, but is there anything else that you can tell us? Because that's usually the first question we ask is like, tell us your print on demand story. So can you fill in some gaps maybe with some of that we introed you with?
Absolutely. All of that is how it started. Oh, I like the transitions. You guys are awesome. So yeah, for anyone who's watching the audio, it goes back and forth, but I think you guys have it. Yeah. Anyway, distracted. So I started with retail arbitrage. I loved that. The reason I got into all of this to begin with is I read the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And that book just totally opened my mind to all different ways of making money. I had always just thought about a job or rental properties, but I'd never really thought about starting businesses and online businesses and all the different ways you can make money. So that's how I got into it. Chris Green somewhere must have put passive income as one of the keywords in one of his videos because somehow he came up. And so I started learning all about FBA and all of that. I think with that, it's like very semi-passive income because Amazon does a lot of the work for you. So you still have to find the products. You still have to ship it to Amazon. But then from there, Amazon kind of takes over. So that was sort of my intro into it. But then when print on demand came around, I'm like, wow, that's even more passive because you don't have to keep basically the products. Once you put up a shirt or a product, it's up there forever. So that's what got me interested in that. And I was talking to Travis ahead of time about how since I've interviewed so many different people, it's very interesting to hear everyone's different backstories and how they got into it and what they like about print on demand, because this is so versatile and it can be for so many different types of people or types of interests. One like mine where it started with the interest in passive income, that's actually the people that usually don't end up sticking with it or doing well because that's not really a strong enough why to do it because it takes a lot of work and a lot of time. So we'll get more into it later, but there's a lot of different reasons why people get into print on demand. And then even whatever your reason is, why do you stay in it? What keeps you motivated? What keeps you uploading? All of that. Yeah,
we'll definitely get into some of that. We're gonna hear some stories from your years of interviewing, print on demand people. We're gonna talk about that a little later. But so tell us, like right now, today, what does your print on demand business look like? What sales channels are you selling on? If you want, you can share, numbers or quantities of things you're selling. You don't have to. Just give us kind of a bird's eye view of where you're at today in your print on demand journey.
Well, as you can tell from my internet, it's really bad. So that's part of the reason why I have doing Merch Money. So for anyone who's known me before, I used to do Merch Money shows every Monday night very religiously. And then the last basically 6 months or so, it's almost completely dropped off. I think I did a few videos this year, but not a whole lot. And you can tell, like, it's not good quality video right now because I just have such bad internet and I haven't taken the time to that or find some kind of solution, partly because I just needed a break. So I've been training for a marathon and all kinds of other stuff. So right this minute, I'm basically in a like hiatus, or I don't know what you'd want to call it, like a sabbatical. I'm taking a break to train for a marathon. But that is one good thing about print on demand, because I still have, I'm on tier 30,000 in merch. So I still have, I think I have, Amazon's been uploading shirts for me, which is awesome. So I don't know for sure what the number is right now. I know it's over 21,000 products live. So
wow.
Those can still be selling whether I'm uploading or not. So I've been taking a break with uploading, but merch has been uploading for me. So that's been awesome. And then in terms of other platforms, same thing. They're all like just uploaded there and just selling on their own. So there's nothing that I'm currently doing over the last, I mean, I don't want to say that completely. Like there are days where I upload, but I've been going much less than before over the last 6 months. I've been focusing on a lot of other things, which we can get into. I've been, anyway, so in terms of other platforms, I have products on Redbubble, basically all the little platforms, you know, Teespring and 6 and all of those. I used Orbit Kit a couple years back and put it up on a whole bunch of different platforms. And Kindle, I have some Kindle books up. Nice. I did Etsy for about 6 months a couple years ago, and then I didn't take my store down. I put it on vacation and then never went back to it. I liked the ones where you could just upload a shirt and then leave it alone. Like I didn't really like Etsy where people message you and they want you to do revisions and then that. So
yeah. So you're basically, your main gig is royalty-based pod. So it's like set it and forget it, put it up there, and then it's just going to sell forever. And you don't have to touch it. It's all royalties. They take care of the fulfillment. They take care of the customer service. You just have to make sure you're not infringing on anyone's intellectual property, and you can really upload to your heart's content. I mean, it is a great business model. And you're saying that you've used, like you mentioned, Orbit Kit. We've talked about that in the past on the show. I think with Yang, we were talking about it and how that just takes, you know, all of these products and just pushes them out to all of these different platforms. Are all of those, if you don't know, that's fine. I'm just curious. Are all of those platforms also royalty based, or does it push to like an Etsy store that you then have to deal with customers and the whole 9 yards? Or you can probably choose, huh?
It pushes to Printful. So from Printful, then you could connect it to Etsy or Shopify or any eBay, anything like that. I can't remember if I pushed to Printful or not. I think I pushed to Printful, but they just sat over there because I never really. I did a little bit with Shopify and eBay, but I never really pursued it too much. Like I don't have any active Etsy or Shopify stores right now.
Right. So, given, you know, the last 3 years of your experience in pod and what we've talked about, where do you see opportunities right now in print on demand, both for creators and for shop owners or those who are producing their own items?
I think that's one of the biggest misconceptions is that there's like one area of opportunity. I think people kind of get this idea in their head that it's just Merch by Amazon and it's just like following trends or copying what's already selling well or things like that. Like people get into a rut where they're like, oh, that's the only way you can make money with print on demand. And I was looking through before the show of all the different shows that we've done on Merch Money, and it's like every single one of them was different and they went after a different thing. So there's different platforms. That's one way to break it down. So Shopify just as successful on Shopify as on Merch, as on eBay, as on Etsy. It's not like any one platform is more successful than the others. Well, I mean, I guess like Merch by Amazon is so much bigger than Teespring or Redbubble or something like that. You're most likely going to be more successful on Merch. But if you're talking about Etsy or Shopify or some of these other really big platforms, you can be very successful there as well. And then you can be very successful if you focus on ads and if you focus on marketing. You can do very well with Facebook ads and Pinterest and TikTok. I did a show on TikTok. You could be really successful selling print on demand on TikTok. Or you could go the direction of selling completely different products. Like we always think of t-shirts, but Shine On is an amazing company. I've talked about it a couple times. But they're coming out with really expensive products. So they have their newest necklace, I think it's $200 MSRP. And they're saying you can price it anything you want. So some people are pricing it higher than that. But if you price it $200, you're making $75 on each product. So if you're good with ads, you have a lot of room to pay for Facebook ads or any other kind of ad for selling that product. So that's a whole nother direction you can go of just looking for high-end products to sell. Even things like hoodies and leggings and things like that, you have a little bit higher margin. So that's a way you can go. Kindle, amazing opportunity. So if you're good at making like coloring book pages or activity books or things like that, the sky's the limit with KDP. And there's also just if you build your own brand. So if you have your own brand around anything, it could be easy to add print on demand into it. So you could add, a shirt line, or you could, it just depends on what your product is or what your platform is. But you can sell t-shirts on YouTube. You can sell, like I said, TikTok. I mean, really it's a very broad way that you can make a lot of money. So we can go dive down into any of the different ways.
Wow.
But there's basically this time of year, there's a lot more people shopping. And if you focus on what you're already making money on, so whatever your main skill is or the way that you make money the best, double down on that. So if you're really good with ads, double down on ads, up your budget, up the number of ads you're doing. If you're really good with following trends, go for it. Keep following trends. There's going to be a lot of holiday trends, and then just in general with foods and things like that. So just really double down on your area of expertise.
Yeah, totally. I just want to, point out, as you were talking, I was just looking through on my other monitor over here, all of the different shows we've done with different people talking about different ways to make money in print on demand. We had RG Martinez on episode 27. Then we had, even more recently, we've had like Nick Eden had some great stuff on episode 55. All kinds of different things. And then very recently we had Chris Grant on episode 60, and he was just talking about marketing, using print on demand, the way to build your list, your email list, and, just as a straight marketing play. We've had a lot of people talking about a lot of different ways, kind of out of the box ways for that. Yeah. What were you going to say?
I was going to say that's a big one. So that Chris Grant interview, definitely listen to that. You can do printables. So that's a whole nother thing that I didn't even mention so far. I mean, there's so many things we haven't even touched on yet. Printables is a huge one. So printables just means like literally something someone can print. And it could be anything from coloring book pages to actual like artwork that people could print out and put on like a poster or frame it. It could be just like little information about whatever it is. So maybe like top 10 tips on something, or planner pages or activity pages, like especially during the pandemic when people were stuck at home. It's like people just wanted to have activities for the kids to do. So they, so many things like that. Like you can And that's perfect for an email list because you can just say, enter your email and you get this free printable.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's that Chris Grant episode, I think for Travis and I both, where it was a really interesting. The advice he brought was what I was telling him after we were done, definitely out of the box, which is kind of, I think what you're saying is there's so many unconventional ways to implement POD that can benefit you outside of just what you're thinking about with a Merch by Amazon account or a Redbubble account.
Yeah.
When you said out of the box, my last episode that I did was about subscription boxes. So that's a whole nother way. There's people that do print on demand.
That's super cool. Yeah. I mean, there's the kind of the lowest hanging fruit, I think, is kind of that, upload it. And then if it sells, it sells, and just, rinse and repeat. But if you want to make this a business, obviously you can scale that and you can make a business out of that. But there's a lot of other ways that they're getting creative with this print on demand. And because the barrier to entry with some of these other things is higher, there's probably less competition. And if you have a way to kind of explain it or, quote unquote, sell it to the masses in a way that's understandable, that they can kind of wrap their brain around and understand, wow, this would really work for me. But you're doing all the work and you're doing, you're using your print on demand knowledge to kind of deliver that to them. The sky really is the limit. So I love these talks when we start kind of brainstorming about what can we do. And I love, Helen, you've interviewed so many people, that have all of these ideas. So you want to just jump in there, Josiah? You want to I was just going to say, I'm thinking that, part of the reason you are aware or you have thought of or know so many of these unique ways to kind of approach POD from a different angle is because of the, tons of interviews you've done over the last 3 years. And you even told us before we recorded, and we were kind of, first corresponding, that you had a lot of awesome stories about different ways people you've had on your own show have implemented POD that might not be as conventional. So let's get into some of those stories and tell us, 2 or 3 of them that would be your favorites that you think are just really awesome ways to implement POD and be successful with it.
Yeah. I mean, there really is so many. As you were talking, I mean, I'm just thinking of so many. One that we hadn't talked about was B2B, which is business. So you can literally sell to anyone, real estate agents or, gyms. There's so many examples of different companies that need T-shirts, and you can help them with their business. Yeah. So we have a couple of shows on the channel about that. Tammy is a great one. She talks about B2B, and then a couple other people. So that's one way. But another thing, I was telling Travis, I moved to Missouri. So I've been here for the past, I don't even know, I think I'm at 7 months or something. I got here and I didn't know anyone. I didn't know a single person in Missouri. But I joined a running group and I was starting to meet people, and I became Facebook friends with one of the people in the running group. And I noticed that we had, 25 mutual friends or something. And I'm like, I don't think I've become friends with 25 people in the running group yet. So I looked at who they were, and there was only 1 or 2 of them were other runners. All the rest of them were print on demand people. And I was like, oh my gosh, I've interviewed over 20 of your friends. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, he was friends with, I think he was friends with RJ and I don't know, quite a few of the people that everybody knows in print on demand. So I was like, it was just funny. So we started talking. I was like, oh, do you do print on demand? And he's a running coach. And so he had looked into it just because he wanted to have T-shirts on his website that were about running. And running actually is a huge print on demand category because people do so many races and they're running all the time. Half their wardrobe is literally T-shirts to run in or tank tops. And so they want them to be funny. And so a lot of runners buy all kinds of funny T-shirts and things to wear when they're running. So that's why he was looking into print on demand. So I'm like, you just never know. It's so many industries, so many different ways you can use print on demand.
So did that, not to pry, but I'm curious, did that turn into a sale for you, Helen? Were you able to kind of, say, hey, let me help you out with this?
It could have. So far, I haven't really pursued that too much. See, that's one thing. Like, I'm not really a designer. Like, I've made plenty of shirts myself, but it's not something that I like really love doing. And right now, I don't have a designer that I'm working with, so I am like not even taking advantage of opportunities like that. But it's something that I should be, and I do need to get back into that. But right now, literally have just been taking a sabbatical from the whole thing. And I think that's, I was happy that Travis invited me onto the show because I'm like, maybe this will kickstart me back into starting Merch Money again, getting shows going again, getting myself going again with Print on Demand. It's one of those things where I've been doing it for so many years that it's like, I kind of was, I don't know, like I was trying to figure out a different way to do things or to get excited about it again. And so I'm happy we're having this conversation because it's me too, to remind myself, like, I don't have to keep doing it the same way. I don't have to just keep uploading to merch. There's so many ways to utilize print on demand to make it interesting again.
I was just going to say, I was looking at your YouTube, and you've got, a lot of your interviews, if not all your interviews, are on here. And one of them that I thought was interesting, you've done a couple of interviews with people on Pinterest, and that's like completely foreign to me. And so I'd love, do you have any stories about how people are using Pinterest in their print on demand, journey, or what does that look like? And maybe a story or a tip or something like that for using Pinterest.
Pinterest is wide open too. I mean, all the different ways are wide open of how you can do it. Everybody does it a little different. I'm most excited about TikTok. I feel like TikTok has tremendous potential for selling print on demand, but Pinterest does too. You basically, it's all about making a pin that people want to click on and that they want to save. The way I personally used Pinterest was for showing shirts together. So if it was like a couple t-shirt or like I did shirts for bachelorette parties and things like that. So if you want to show like a grouping of shirts, it's really nice to do a pin because then you can, when they click on the pin, you can tag all different shirts. I think you can do it. I don't know. There's people better with technology than me. I used Merch Wizard to, they had a way where you could merge all different merch shirts into one link. And then when the person clicked on the link, it would show like each shirt in a row. So I used that. It was called like Store Link or something like that. And it was through Merch Wizard. And so I would merge together all the different shirts for that group. And so when they clicked on the pin, they'd be able to see all the different shirts that go together. So that's why I liked Pinterest, because sometimes, especially on Merch by Amazon, it's really hard to show groups of shirts or shirts for couples because it just shows one shirt at a time.
That's awesome. Yeah, I wasn't aware of a merch link. I think that's an awesome idea, especially if you're utilizing Pinterest. You mentioned TikTok a couple of times, and we as for apparel, we work with a lot of online influencers and have been working with some TikTokers that have, that are popular in that subculture, which is really crazy that there's such a subculture for TikTok and TikTok celebrities that no one else would know who they are. But have you had experience, selling something on TikTok, or have had a guest on? Because obviously I've had some experience there. I'd be interested to hear any stories you have in the TikTok arena that makes you, as you said, the most excited about that particular platform.
As soon as it came out, people will know, I posted about it in Merch Money, like not as soon as it came out, but like pretty early, a couple of years ago, I was posting about TikTok, and Gary Vee was one of the first people on it because he's always the first one onto the platform.
Early adopter, for sure.
So I took a screenshot of his TikTok account from a couple years ago, and then every 6 months or so, I would take another screenshot, and I'm like, do you guys see how fast this is growing? Like, this is growing at a much faster rate than his YouTube channel. It just had such high growth potential. And because everything's so short, people can watch it a lot more. They go through a lot more content. So on YouTube, if you have an hour to kill, you might only watch one video, two videos. It depends on how long they are.
Sure.
But you only have so much time with a couple videos. TikTok, you could go through hundreds in that same amount of time. So it makes it so that you get a lot more click-throughs than you do on YouTube. So if it's something funny that people pause or they share, people sell so much on there. So I don't personally have experience with it because I don't have the right personality where, anyone can do it, but for me in particular, I had trouble getting myself to do it because I just felt like I'm just not quite good enough with technology or with like coming up with skits or ideas or things like that. But I just saw the opportunity. So I kept trying to tell people about it because it was just amazing growth, amazing click through. And there have been people who have taken advantage of it. And I've found people really good with TikTok to interview on the channel. So if you guys look on there, there are some videos about how to use TikTok for print on demand. Nice.
Yeah, that's exciting. I think, like you said, it's hard to you almost have to have, let me back up. The people that we've worked with that have been successful so far have had established characters or skits or content that there's a through line. And so they're able to monetize the stuff they're already doing that's attracted the following. And then they're able to put that slogan or catchphrase or whatever on a shirt, and then their followers identify with it and snatch it up. But I can agree with you, and my wife and I can attest. You can burn through a lot of TikTok videos in an hour and a half. Where they'll be nice. We're just laying in bed and we're just like sending each other, or hey, watch this. This is hilarious, or whatever. And then we realize it's 10:30. What are we doing? You lose. It's a time warp. That app. It's a time warp. You lose all sense of space and time when you get sucked into the vortex. But you're right. I think it is because they are and so much shorter and so much more to the point. There's a lot of opportunity for click-throughs and merch sales if you've got that following, or you have an idea or know how to use the hashtags correctly to draw attention to whatever it is you're trying to move.
Yeah. Real quick, it's not exactly print on demand, but one of my friends from just the e-commerce world, she sold on Amazon, FBA, and things like that. She started a company that was selling packaging, so it appealed to Etsy sellers and people that have to ship out products. And she does all kinds of TikTok videos on literally packing, shipping envelopes. And I'm like, how could you turn that into a TikTok thing? But they're all engaging videos. She just somehow figured it out. And most of it comes from TikTok. Literally, people are like, oh, I love that. And they click on it and they buy it. And it's crazy to me. I'll have to look for it and tell you guys, because I probably know her. She's friends with Amy Wees and I don't know, a lot of the people in that whole group. So you guys probably would recognize her. But
sure.
I just couldn't believe it that she started this business and all of it's from TikTok.
That's awesome.
It's incredible. Yeah.
So as we approach, Travis and I just did an episode on the show for our yearly checkup, not the quarterly. Like when you go to a doctor's office, it's time for the yearly checkup. Are you ready for Q4? Yeah. And we kind of ran through the things of what to be ready for, what to prepare for, what to look for, what to evaluate, so on and so forth. So as we approach that, getting into the biggest selling months of the year, what tips do you have for our listeners to maximize profits during Q4 as people are, like you said earlier, shopping more online, it's gift giving season, so on and so forth. What tips do you have for our listeners?
Well, one is use your time wisely and don't let anything stop you. Some people are in a lower tier on merch, so maybe they run out of spots to upload shirts, or maybe they get stuck somewhere. Maybe you run out of money for doing ads, or something stops you. There's always something that you can do. So you can always be designing new shirts for whenever you do get tiered up, or whenever you want to switch out a shirt if something's not selling. You also can be doing research to find maybe different ideas that might sell better. You also can be learning ads. I would definitely say ads is really helpful. So if you have a doing well, or if you, I don't know. I think if you can afford it, definitely do some Amazon ads if you can. If you're somebody who knows ads well, you could branch out into other things and do Facebook ads and things like that. You just have to be careful with margin. With t-shirts, it's not a high enough margin to do a ton of ads necessarily. But again,
Sure.
that goes into what we're talking about before. If you have higher margin products, ads are extremely helpful. So that could be a focus. But the main thing is just be busy right now.
Right.
Doing a lot of whatever is your highest profit activity, do that. So if you're somebody who's good with SEO, good with marketing, do that. I think that's the highest skill right now. But if you're somebody who's very good with designing, be designing all day. Make sure that you're getting as many shirts up as possible. If you run out of room on merch, there's so many other platforms. There's Redbubble, there's Etsy, there's you could start a Shopify store. It's not necessarily the time to learn something brand new. So if you haven't done, if you haven't done Shopify before, it might not be the time to learn a brand new thing. But whatever has been the most successful for you so far up to now, I would focus on that. So if Etsy's been your best platform, really focus on Etsy. Make sure that your mock-ups are like holiday looks, things like that. Like maybe you had a mock-up that was just very simple with like a simple background. Maybe take out that, add another picture or take that out and make it more holiday looking. Make sure your store has some kind of holiday feel to it. Things like that.
Yeah, I was just going to mention, you mentioned advertising, and I think that's really, it's really timely. If you haven't gotten into advertising, obviously, to your point, don't go starting something if it's completely foreign to you, as far as like a new project, because it's just that, you have 3 quarters for that, and then you have 1 quarter to make all the sales. So let's kind of get into, the Q4 mode here and just make all the sales and don't start something new. But if you are already advertising and you have some, some experience, tweaking those ads right now is probably a good thing. We did an episode called "Do You Even Advertise, Bro?" with Uncle Mike Perillo. That's episode 39. If you want to go back and check that out. And Mike has a lot of experience with advertising, and just going in there and like tweaking some of those different campaigns that you may have, or creating new campaigns for some of your winners, or some of the things that you think are going to be winners, maybe holiday things or topical things. There's a lot you can do with advertising that can really, really pay off this time of year, for sure. Yeah,
that's all I'm working on right now is my ads. I'm not even putting up new shirts or anything because I already have so many shirts listed. So all I'm doing right now for Q4 is just working on my ads.
Yeah, that makes sense. Get more traffic. You optimize those and make sure you're getting the most people clicking through those ads as they are looking for those gifts. I think that's awesome advice for sure. So as we start to wind down, Helen, we always like to. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, in my case, I've had a couple different Q4s that I've gone through. So I've been able to see what's done well in each of the Q4s. So if it seems like it's still relevant, it wasn't like a trend or anything. If it seems like something people would like this Q4 also, then I just, I've been upping the ads compared to last year. So picking the ones I already know sell well and already have sold well in previous Q4s and just really maximizing those to the fullest.
Yeah, absolutely. So as we wind down here, we always like to close our interview segments with a set of questions that we've given a name. Not only have we given them a name, we've given them their own special intro and bumper. So with that being said, we're going to move right now into the magic questions. Yes, very nostalgic and somehow slides right under YouTube's copyright issue. So,
so we got a couple questions. You didn't hear anything? Oh, well, you'll have to listen live. Helen, why don't you tell us, first magic question, tell us about a time when something happened in your business that felt like a failure and you just were devastated and it was like a horrible thing that happened?
Okay. I think with print on demand specifically.
But
anytime you get a rejection feels like.
Yeah.
I think we kind of touched on it in the beginning when you were doing my intro. I didn't even take advantage of print on demand at all the entire first year because I just didn't have the confidence to upload a shirt. I felt like you had to be a designer. I felt like I didn't know how to design. So I think that's the biggest failure of just taking way too long. Like if you drag your feet, you're missing a huge opportunity. There was hardly any people on Merch by Amazon at that time. Like that whole first year, it was so easy to make sales, and I missed the entire first year when I shouldn't have. I knew about it. I was in whatever Facebook groups had started at that time, which is really shout out to Joe Clay. He was one of the very first ones. So I was in his group, and Chris Green. I think Chris Green and Joe Clay were the first two. So I had no excuse. I just didn't do it. So I think in terms of failures, that's the biggest failure when you don't do it. If I had tried and like messed up on my first shirt, that's not really a failure because then you can just upload the next shirt. But when you don't do anything, obviously nothing's going to sell. Like nothing was listed. So that was my biggest failure, just not doing anything the first year.
Awesome. So moving into the next question here. If you had to start all over and lost all of your current contacts, you hadn't interviewed 3 years worth of guests, none of it. It's all taken away. You had to start all over again. What would you do if you had to go back to square one?
Oh man, there's so many things. So many things you can do. I would just try different things until I found something that I liked. So like we've been talking about all show, there's so many platforms. There's so many angles you can go. You can combine it with any other interests that you have. So for me, I'm training for a marathon. I can be uploading shorts about running and little like inside jokes about running. So basically just don't be afraid, take action, be consistent, and learn. Like between YouTube and everything out there, there's so many, there's no excuse for not knowing how to do something because it's so easy to find the answer. And there's so many Facebook groups where you can just post a question. So just learning quicker and taking action quicker. I think those were the two things that I really took my time with. And I finally got myself to start learning and taking it seriously by starting Merch Money. So it's interesting. I never really wanted to be a guru or a teacher or anything like that. All I wanted to do was learn. And I realized that if you had a YouTube channel, you could ask anyone to talk to you and they would. And so I got all the like free coaching without just by inviting people onto the show. So that was how I learned.
I was just gonna say that's definitely a benefit of having a podcast. You know, we can get all these different people, Ryan Hogue and Neil Lassen and Michael Essick, and and just basically pick their brain and say, hey, what would you do in this situation? And you can kind of get a lot of quote unquote free information, but it's also helping a lot of people. That's been really awesome about you, Helen. You're an open book. You're always willing to share. I know we did a ton of the Clubhouse, marathon Clubhouse for hours and hours. We just talk about print on demand all day. Those were super fun. And you were, the impetus for all of that. So first and foremost, thank you for, kind of leading the charge in that. Even though maybe you don't, see yourself as a guru or a leader in the space, you definitely are. And we all appreciate you for that. I'm going to ask you one last question for the magic questions, and then we'll get kind of some of your contact information for the listeners and we'll sign off. But we always ask this crystal ball question. So put on your turban and look into your crystal ball and tell us, what do you think the future of print on demand is?
Well, I don't think it's going anywhere. I think it is the future. People want things to be quick. They want things to be easy. Print on demand is that. Like, nobody wants to have to print all their own shirts and do all their own thing. Like, it's easier. It's less wasteful because you print exactly how many shirts customers have bought. You don't have to have any extra. So I think print on demand is here to stay. I think there's a lot of fear in all the Facebook groups, and a lot of worry about algorithms or saturation or all these different things. But I mean, there's always been fear the entire 8 years I've been doing e-commerce, and I'm sure there was fear before that. I don't think the internet's going anywhere. I don't think e-commerce is going anywhere. I don't think print on demand is going anywhere. All of these things are here to stay. But people have been claiming the sky's falling at least for 8 years. I'm sure longer than that. So I would say just block all that out. And just know that you're lucky to be so early. I mean, I think it's been fascinating to watch print on demand. It was around before Merch by Amazon, obviously, but I kind of started following it closely when Merch by Amazon got involved. And it's been so fun to just watch the progression of it, watch it spread to other countries. It's fun to go back to my old videos because I'm like, oh my gosh, I was like explaining to everyone how I felt like it was going to go to other countries and other products. And then I thought it would go much faster. So it's been, I don't know, 6 years it's taken for them to go to all these countries and products. But I think they're just going to keep adding more and more countries, more products. So it's kind of unfolding exactly how I thought it would, except a little slower. But it's just fun. Like, I don't think that's ending anytime soon. And the amount of things you can print on is absolutely endless. We only have, what is it, like 60 products right now, if you count all the countries. But it could be hundreds, could be thousands if it wanted to be. I mean, there really is no limit to print on. So I think, I just think it's an exciting time. And it's exciting that even in like me, who I'm getting a little bit, I went through this phase, which I think is so funny that it ended up correlating perfectly with having bad Wi-Fi. Because I was like, I need a break from doing the show. And I end up in a place that just magically doesn't have internet right now. But even if you're like me, where you're going through a phase where you're like trying to figure out what new angle you want to do to make it interesting again, I think print on demand is perfect because no matter what I decide to do, print on demand can fit into it. So even if I go more towards running marathons and things like that, I mean, you can fit in print on demand to anything that you're doing, any type of business. Even if you decide to write books, I mean, you could do Kindle. It's just endless where you can fit print on demand into whatever else you're doing. And even if you need a break, like what I'm doing and taking a break, print on demand is still selling in the background. So no matter what you're doing, there's really not a lot of downside to doing print on demand. You can do it as much as you want, as little as you want. It could be something you do as a side hustle in the evenings. It could be something you do full time. It could be something that you do periodically whenever you have spare time. I mean,
well, Helen, thank you so much for taking time to be on the show with us. It's great to have you back on, or to have you on rather, in return for you having us on. So thank you for taking time and kind of sharing your knowledge and sharing your expertise and sharing your experience with our listeners. It's definitely very valued. And so what I want to do as we wrap things up is to tell people, one, you're in our Facebook group and they should be too. So, but that's just to say that's one way that they can reach out to you, is to post a question and tag you in it. But if people want to follow more, learn more about what you're doing, merch money, that kind of stuff, go ahead and take a second to kind of plug all of your social media handles and anything like that so people know where to find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And yes, everybody should definitely follow Travis and Josiah, their podcast, Facebook, all of that. Amazing. So you can find me anywhere with Merch Money, Instagram, YouTube. I have a podcast. Spotify is having video podcasts now. So I was going to ask you, Travis, if you tried that yet. I haven't. I tried to. I have early access to uploading videos for Spotify, but I haven't yet because it's confusing when you have all the other platforms that don't have video. So have you tried it yet?
No, not yet.
I haven't. No,
I saw the.
Have you tried Spotify, the video?
Yeah, I saw the invite, but we haven't had an opportunity to do that really. Well, we haven't really spent the time because I'm just the pretty face. Josiah's the tech guy, so if he doesn't figure it out, it ain't going to get done.
I think it's so interesting that like one person can change a platform. So I think it's Joe Rogan that made it that Spotify had video, and eventually the Merch Money podcast will have video. Right now, I'm not quite there yet, but you can listen on the podcast, watch the YouTube channel, Facebook group, Merch Money Facebook group, and then my name, of course, Helen Kinson. You could message me on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok.
Yes, don't forget about TikTok. Message her there as well. Well, Helen, thanks again for joining us, and we look forward to catching up with you again soon and seeing, where you're at in 6 months or a year, and better Wi-Fi, more uploads. Who knows what the year will hold, but we look forward to catching up with you and chatting with you then.
All right. Well, my marathon's in 2 weeks, so that was sort of my cutoff. After the marathon, nice. I'm planning on coming back.
Sounds great.
Awesome. All right, we'll talk soon. We want to thank Helen once again for coming on the show, taking time out of her schedule of training for a marathon, which is something I've got to give her the most credit for, because I do not ever see myself taking that on personally. So kudos to Helen for marathon training and taking time out of that to join us. So thank you again so much, Helen, for coming on the show. Travis, how did you think the interview went now that we're on the other side of our interview with Helen?
Yeah, I mean, we had some technical issues. She was on, 5G or 4G or 3G. I don't know what it was, but we had some lag that we had to deal with.
One of the Gs.
One of the Gs.
Felt like it was the OG. Am I right? Am I right?
Okay. Anyway, but aside from that, I think she had a lot of great ideas for print on demand, and she has had a lot of really cool interviews and interviewed a lot of people about a lot of different things, a lot of different ways to market print on demand, and utilize print on demand, maybe not in the traditional ways. What did you think about what are some of the things that you took away as golden nuggets in this interview? Because you always ask me after, but I never get to ask you. So I'm going to turn the tables and ask you what you thought was some of the best parts of this interview this week.
No, I thought the interview was really, really good. Like you said in the intro, the breadth of her experience just in who she's interviewed and who she's talked to on her own show, which again is Merch Money Podcast. For those of you that want to go support Helen, and we ask that you please do. She's awesome. But I thought, just the ways that she mentioned, she mentioned some KDP stuff in there. So you can tell that she's definitely thinking about all the different angles that you can approach POD. B2B was another thing that, you and I have done a lot of B2B stuff in our own businesses, working with people who need their shirts for their crew or whatever that looks like. But it was nice to hear her have so many ideas as to how you can approach POD other than, just the Merch by Amazons or the Red Bubbles, which of course does. And you can tell that she's always thinking of different ways to approach this. Like you said, even if she's not currently implementing them, or if she is, or whatever that looks like, just the understanding that there's so much that you can do with print on demand. And one thing she said was, feel grateful that you're an early adopter on the ground floor of POD, which in a lot of respects we are, is this technology is so new and it's going to keep, developing and getting faster and getting better, more cost efficient. There's going to be new things you can do year after year. So this really is a great time to be one of those kind of early adopters of print on demand, because it can only go and get bigger from here.
Yeah, totally agree. I mean, I think you said it all there. We are early adopters, and it's hard to remember that when you're doing the same thing day in, day out, and you've been doing it for years, I was, doing mugs in my basement 3+ years ago, and so, I mean, grinding, you feel like you've been doing it forever, and like surely by now everybody knows about this thing, and surely by now the competition is so out of this world that I'm never going to be able to list a product and get any sales on it. But it's just not true. Yeah, it really isn't.
Well, I think that's interesting too when you talk about the competition, because I think because we are so immersed in print on demand, and it is kind of our world, that we assume that everyone knows the Printful or the Teespring or the Spring or whatever those big, businesses are. And so we assume that a lot of people have understood this model, have heard about this model, whatever. But there's multiple times I have conversations with people who are like, man, did you guys think of this business model yourself? Because it's brilliant. And I'm like, no, it is nothing new, but I'm glad to kind of expose it to you and have you work with us. But it is hard, especially when you're in the industry, to understand that you are an early adopter. And just because other companies are further along or bigger than you doesn't mean that you're not an early adopter, even though they might have been doing it longer. The technology itself is still so relatively new that there's so many opportunities out there to capitalize on it. So that's definitely a good point.
Yeah. And not only that, you're going to be, because you're tuned in to, current events and kind of where the industry's at, you're going to be the first ones to know when things change. I literally was listening to a podcast about some DTF that there's a printer out there that does DTF that doesn't use the powder. It actually has a spray adhesive. And that's a whole nother thing. I'm just going to tease that.
Oh, wow.
And we can talk about that offline. I'll give you the 411 on that. But I mean, but my point is that had I not been in this industry, I never would have saw that. I never would have heard about that. And, maybe I won't do anything with that information, but I have that information. And if I wanted to do something with it, I could. Yeah, exactly. And that's the idea here.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's exciting. I want to know more about that for sure. Because we've talked, I was actually there when you guys were doing some DTF tests on direct to film stuff using the powder. So I'd be interested to see what that spray is all about. But we will save that for perhaps another point of interest or another episode all together. For now, we thank you guys so much for listening. Once again, one more time, I want to thank Helen for coming on the show. It was great to have her. And if you guys want to get a hold of her or have a question for her, you can follow her on her social media platforms, or you can also go to printondemandcast.com/Facebook. Submit a question, post a question, tag her in it, tag Travis and I in it, whatever you want to do. But let us know if you have any questions, any insight, anything that you would think is an out-of-the-box approach to print on demand that perhaps we didn't mention in this interview. You can let us know that as well. We're always wanting to hear from you guys, always wanting to know your insights. And as always, wherever there are podcasts available, the PODcast is there for you. We're talking about Spotify, Google, Stitcher, Anchor. But if you're on the Apple Podcast app itself, please leave us a 5-star rating and a review on iTunes. It helps us tremendously. We're greatly appreciative of it. We love reading your comments. Anything less than a 5-star will not be mentioned. I'm just kidding. Not really. We'll dox you. We won't do that. But a 5-star review would be great. Leave a comment, and we will shout you out on one of the shows, because we really do thank you guys so much for being a part of the PODcast family. We have had a blast, and hopefully, should all of this stuff pan out well for January, the ISS, you guys register, you show up, we show up. It'd be great to do a meetup and meet some of you guys in person, the ones that we haven't yet. It will be awesome to meet you for the first time, and those that we have, it'd be good to see you once again. So, Travis, anything else before we wrap this thing up and send it home?
Nope. Good times doing the show tonight. So with Helen and with Josiah, that's all I got. That's I don't know why I said all of those
good time. It was literally like words chasing themselves. Like, yes, good time. Exactly. Okay, corral. More calling Horson. I don't know what's happening. Well, with that, folks, for Travis, I'm Josiah. We'll see you next time right here on the Print on Demand Cast.
See ya.
Hey, babe. Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Print on Demand Cast. We hope you enjoyed the Totally Tubular Show. If you've got a question or a suggestion for the show, send Travis and Josiah an email at info@printondemandcast.com. Want to be wicked nice? Take a minute to rate and review the show on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. And don't forget to subscribe now so you don't miss next week's episode. See you next time, for sure.
Hold on.
It's fine. We can edit all this out because I asked you a question and you can just answer it and we'll just put it right back in as soon as you get it fixed.
I don't know why it's not showing back up.
You sound like the teacher on Charlie Brown.
Can you hear me?
Ha! You're back. It's beautiful.
All right.
Like butter.